I want to be the best there ever was. To beat all the rest, yeah, that's my cause. Electro, Diglett, Nidoran, Ninky, Venusaur, Rattata, Fearow, Pidgey, Seeking, Jolteon, Dragonite, Ghastly, Ponyta, Victoria, Poliwrath, Butterfree. Catch 'em, gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon! I search across the land, look far and wide. Release from my hand the power that's inside. Venomoth, Poliwag, Nidorino, Golduck, Ivysaur, Grimer, Vigibell, Moltres, King, Farfetch, Abra, Jigglypuff, Kingler, Rhyhorn, Playful, Wigglytuff. Catch 'em, gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon! Vet, Primate, Meowth, Onyx, Geodude, Rapidash, Magneton, Snorlax, Gengar, Caledonian, Sparrow, Speedling, Zero, Gyro, Slowbro. Gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all. Ow! Gotta catch 'em all, Pokemon. Ow! Cubo, Persian, Paras, Horsey, Raticat, Magnemite, Cabra, Weavebell, Villo, Cloyster, Caterpie, Sandshrew, Bulbasaur, Charmander, Golem, Pikachu! At least 150 more to see. To be a Pokemon master is my destiny. Akazan, Dudo, Venonat, Mucho, Cunningham, Flareon, Blastoise, Poliwhirl, Oddish, Drowsy, Raichu, Nidoqueen, Starmie. Woo! What's my point grade so far? What's all this wee stuff? I'm doing all the hard work. Break time's are over. Here we go! Metapod, Marowak, Knuckle Fairy, Dodrio, Seagreen, Tartloop, Krabby, Lickitung, Tauros, Weedle, Nidoran, Knob, Chatler, Porygon, Hitmonchan! Oh, gotta catch 'em all! Yeah! Gotta catch 'em all! Gotta catch 'em all! Woo! Hero, Jinx, Nidorino, Beedrill, Hunter, Squirtle, Chansey, Pokemon, Reflect, Dumug, D1, Pidgeot, Lapras, Vulpix, Rhydon, at least 150 more to see. Be a Pokemon master is my destiny. Charizard, Machamp, Pinsir, Koffing, Dodrio, Golbat, Staryu, Magikarp, Ninetales, Ekans, oh my stars. This is gonna go with Dragomar, Magmar. Whoa! Gotta catch your breath, man. Check those lips downhill from here. There's 24 more to go. Now it gets tricky, so listen real good. Sandlash, Lively, Psyduck, Arcane, Eevee, Executor, Zapdos, Dratini, Garlight, Mr. Mind, Cubo, Graveler, Voltorb, Bloom. We're almost home. Gotta catch 'em all. Yo! Gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all, Pokemon! Woo! Chameleon, Wartortle, Mewtwo, Tentacruel, Aerodactyl, Almanite, Slowpoke, Gyarados, Arbok. That's all, folks! Gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all! Oh, go get 'em all, Pokemon! Gotta catch 'em all! Ooh, gotta catch 'em all, Pokemon! Gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all, Pokemon! Woo! Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy, and welcome back to Stonesy Reads. We're doing page 21 to 40 of Step Closer, the spookiest Five Nights at Scary. And yeah, so let's just hop into it, shall we? What now? Couldn't he get through one day without her asking him to do something? Yeah, he loved his mom, but now that she didn't have his dad to help her, Pete was always on call. She better not ask him to take Chuck out again. He wouldn't do it. He'd say, "Nope, sorry, I'm sick." He clicked on the text. "Hi, Pete. After school, can you swing by the butcher and pick up my order of pork chop?" He responded flatly, "Fine." She responded, "Thank you," heart emoji. Pete popped a wad of watermelon gum into his mouth and set off walking to the butcher shop, which was a couple of blocks out of his way. He wanted to get his license, and that was a plan 6 months ago, before the divorce. But now everyone seemed to have forgotten. He finally arrived at Barney's butcher shop during a lull. No cars were parked out in front, which was perfect because he could get the order and get out fast. Pete pushed through the glass door and no one was even behind the counter. Sale prices were posted on the glass. Some old rock music was playing from the back. He walked to the display cases of raw meats, scanning left and right. "Hello," he called out. "Yo, I got an order to pick up." There wasn't a bell to ring, so he stood around for another minute waiting for someone to help him. When no one came, he about had it. He knocked on the glass counter a couple times. "Hello?" Finally, he took matters into his own hands, walking behind the tall display case. "Hey, anyone here or what?" On the other side of the case was a long butcher's table with watery red liquid on it. The overpowering scent of meat and blood made his guts swish around again. The gum in his mouth turned sour, so he put his hand to his stomach to ease it. I will not blow chunks. I will not blow chunks, he thought. He looked around to distract himself, but all he saw were pictures of butchered animals. When he craned his head to the other direction, he was surrounded by rows of lethal-looking knives, cleavers hanging above his head. A new wave of dizziness washed over him. He set his hand on the bounds of the butcher's table, felt a watery liquid on his fingertips, and broke out in a cold sweat. Wham! A huge meat cleaver slammed down into the wood, barely missed his wrist. Pete shot backward, protecting his hand against his chest, knocking into the display case with his back. He gazed at the meat cleaver embedded in the wood. The handle vibrated in the air as the force had been incredibly strong. His gaze whipped up toward the hanging tools. One empty hook was swaying slowly. A meat cleaver had fallen from the hook. Fallen? He didn't think something could fall so forcefully on its own. But what else could have happened? Hey, what are you doing back here? A stocky older man wearing a bloody apron waddled into the area, wiping his hands with the towel. Employees only. Can't you read the signs? Pete pointed to the cleaver stuck on the table. Nah, you can't be playing with my knives. You trying to get me in trouble, kid? Health department will have my license. I spit it out. What's the matter? I didn't touch anything. It just fell. The old man narrowed his eyes. No way these knives fall from these hooks, kid. If that were the case, I'd be losing a lot more fingers than the one I already cut off. Old man wringing his left hand, showing his missing pinky and a ring finger, and its top lopped off. The skin looked smooth and two oddly shaped finger stumps. When Pete started to shake, the man laughed. Scared? Never seen someone with missing fingers before? Well, keep your fingers and hand away from my sharp objects, kid, and you should be just fine. Maybe. He cracked up again. Pete swallowed hard. Just here, to pick up an order for Dinglewood. The butcher waved a hand back to his back room. Yeah, I got that in the fridge. Chops, right? I'll be right with you. Pete whipped to the front of the door of his house and slammed it as soon as he stormed through. He tossed his back to the floor and strode into the kitchen, where he opened the fridge, threw the chops in, and grabbed a soda. He shut the door with his hip and jugged the whole can. The cola soothed his throat and sweetness calmed him a little. What a freaky day. He took off his cap, ran a hand over his head. He just needed to rest, eat, and forget everything else. No more crazy dreams or weird kids with scalpels. And definitely no more butcher shops. His mom was going to have to pick up the meat herself from now on. He glanced out of the kitchen window and heard a backyard gate creak open. Chuck pushed his bike in and leaned in on the side of the house before coming through the side door. Pete felt his irritation bubble up. Are you crazy, he asked. If Mom finds out you biked to school, someone hogged the bathroom this morning and I was late for the bus. And I didn't pick you up. I'm busted. I won't tell. Yeah, right. You always snitch. Chuck rolled his eyes. I didn't tell her about you forcing me to do maintenance chores, did I? Not yet, but I saw how you wanted to tell her last night at dinner. You thought you were real funny. Chuck headed up an expiration. Well, I didn't, and that was account for something. Pete shrugged. Still, you can't be trusted. Fine, I should just tell her to get you busted. How about that? See, you are a snitch. Shut up, you are. Shut up, you little twerp. Chuck gave in. Whatever, jerkwad, he muttered, and he grabbed a loaf of bread from the bread rocks, with the peanut butter from the pantry, then the jelly from the fridge, pulled out a butter knife from the drawer, and started to make himself a sandwich. When he saw Pete eyeing his sandwich, he lifted his eyebrow. What, you want one? Pete hesitated. Don't know. Well, make your own. Pete held a hand to his stomach, debating if he could handle it. You still sick or something? Chuck wanted to know. He shrugged. It's an off day. What happened? Pete snapped. Don't worry about it. None of your business. No freaking way could he tell someone else about the embarrassing incident in Biocast and the flying cleaver, especially not the third brother who would run to tell Mom and freak her out. Fine. Pete finished making a sandwich and slid across the counter toward Pete. A peace offering. Pete lifted his eyebrows in surprise as Chuck began making another. You know, Mom filled out the organ donor paperwork for us, Chuck said, like it was a casual conversation. Pete's jaw dropped. What? Why? Chuck nodded, flashing his braces, looking almost pleased. She said you'd come around to the idea eventually, but I told her not to. Since when does Mom ever listen to what we want? Chuck took a bite of his sandwich and kept talking with his mouth full. It's not a big deal anyway. You're dead when they take your organs, your life, your soul, or whatever is gone. What do I care? Why do you even care so much? Pete didn't know where to start. Here he was, trying to save his body parts all day long, and his mom was just trying to give them away? It's just a stupid idea. Chuck gave him a curious look. What? Wait, you're scared, aren't you? No, shut up. I looked it up. You want to know how they cut into you and take your organs? It's so cool. They split you open in like a Y incision, take your guts, and all hanging out. Then they remove everything piece by piece. They made a face. with his eyes rolled back and his tongue hanging out. Your intestines are super long, right? So they just pull them out like a long rope of linked sausage. Chuck made a motion with his hand like pulling a long piece of rope from his stomach. I said to shut up. Pete grabbed a sandwich and fled to his room. The next morning, Pete sipped from a triple caffeine energy drink as he walked to school. The sun was out, which has improved the walk a lot. Today had to be better than yesterday, he figured. Last night he had weird dreams again, and luckily the details drifted away as soon as he woke up, and there hadn't been any spewing his guts into the toilet, so that was a score. He barely spoken to his mom last night or this morning. Why hadn't she signed up for the donor when he told her not to? He didn't even want to eat pork chops he picked up last night. All they did was remind him that he almost not lost his hand. When he passed the construction site, he paused a moment. He looked across the sea and decided against crossing all the busy traffic. Instead, he'd go right under the scaffolding. Pete scanned the boards above him, making sure there weren't any weird tools that could fall on his head. He heard motorized saws and drills sounding from the inside of the site, but nothing coming from the scaffolding. When he figured he was safe, he relaxed a little, just in case. He walked cautiously under the boards, with quick glances above him. One thing he learned recently was that he couldn't be too careful. As he neared the end of the scaffolding, he took a breath of relief. Piece of cake. From the inside of the site, he heard a funny buzz and then a harsh clank. The hairs on Pete's arm stood up. What the hell? Watch out! Someone shouted. Pete stopped. Thought something moving fast in perfect collision. His head turned in time to see the circular buzzsaw blade flying in his direction, running him with a flying frisbee of sharp death. His jaw went slack and his adrenaline spiked. He dove backward and round blade flew through the air toward him. He held up his hand in defense, like maybe he could catch it. And then he realized it was the worst thing to do. He tried to pull his hand out of the way of the flying path blade. He thought he was home free until he felt it slice into his flesh just above his wrist, followed by a sharp stinging. He crashed to the ground, his drink pouring over him. Air gushed out of his lungs. His eyes were wide as he lifted his arm, watching the shock pour blood down his skin. Oh man, kid, someone call 911. A construction worker rushed to his side, grabbing at his helmet as if he was not sure with his hands. Let me get a clean rag, just don't move. The worker ran off and other people started to gather around. Kid, you okay? Man in a suit above Pete and leaned down. He had his phone to his ear. Hello? Yeah, there's been an accident. There's a teenager. He's bleeding on the arm. Construction site on Willington and Salisbury. Hurry, please. Don't worry, kid. Help is on the way. Yes, he's conscious. Dazed, Pete glanced at the open gash on his arm. It wasn't very deep, but he could have died. Pete meowed as soon as he stepped into the house. Pete, in my room, he called out. He was lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling. After the paramedic bandaged him up at the construction site, he called his mom and walked back home, and he didn't even wait for a ride. He wanted to get as far away from the construction site as possible. Now his energy was spent. He noticed his back was sore, so he then gone to the bathroom and lifted his shirt in front of the mirror. As if his sliced arm wasn't bad enough, he also had a bunch of fresh scratches from his back from falling on the sidewalk. Yesterday, he had a couple of close calls. The latest incident was more dangerous. This time, there was actual blood. Mom swept into the bathroom in a flurry of nerves. Oh my gosh, oh my baby. Pete sighed. Mom, I'm okay. It's just a small wound. I don't need stitches. Everything is fine. She grabbed his hand, scanning the bandage on his arm. How did this happen? She bowed a cheek right over his head and gave him a kiss on the forehead. Pete looked at his arm, answered honestly. Don't know, really. Her eyes went wide. What do you mean you don't know? Were you not paying attention? Why was the construction worker being negligent? Do we need to call a lawyer? Maybe we should go to the hospital. No, okay, Mom? Just relax. Jeez. Well, it was kind of nice to have all the attention for once. Her anxiety put him on edge. No, I'm not relaxing. You could have really gotten hurt. She straightened across her arms and determined to look in her face. That's it. We're not walking to school anymore. You ride the bus or get a ride. Maybe I can change my schedule. I'll drive you and your brother to school. I think I can make it all work. And then she placed her hands on her hips and suddenly Wonder Woman and there was nothing that could stop her. I will make it work. Mom, stop. It's just a freak accident, which he had been having a lot lately. There was a knock at the front door when it swung open. Pete shot up his bed, startled. Who the hell is that? Pete, your language. Hello? Anybody home? Bellowed a familiar voice. Pete stared at his mom accusingly. You called Dad? She said. Of course I called your father. Over here, Bill. In Pete's room. Quickly she started to pick up dirty clothes that were floating on the floor. I have to call him when there's an emergency. Gosh, Pete, this room's a mess. Like that was anything new. Dad filled the doorway, wearing his cargo pants and t-shirt, with his pocket vest and floppy canvas hat. There was a forced smile made over his scruffy beard. There's my boy. Were you fishing? Mom asked him, surprised. No, not yet. I took the rest of the day off, making it an early weekend. I'm here to take my firstborn with me to the lake. How you doing there, Pete? Let me see that arm. His dad stepped forward in bed, kicking water bottles as he went. His jaw hardened, and he didn't say anything about the mess. Pete raised his arm for his dad's inspection, unsure how to make his visit. He hadn't seen his dad in a couple of months, only talked to him on the phone a few times. Suddenly he was home, like really home. He hadn't been inside the house for nearly 6 months. It used to be so normal to have mom and dad home together, and now it felt super awkward. Dad made a humph sound. Doesn't look too bad. You'll be good as new before you know it. Yeah, well, I don't think I'm up to fishing today, Dad. In fact, he knew he wasn't up to it. He was sore and he wanted to lay down and go to sleep. Pete gave his mom a pleading look. She hesitated. He's tired, Bill. Maybe another time. It's been a crazy morning. Dad waved his hand. Nonsense. He's fine. Fishing calms the nerves and relaxes the mind. Come on now. Get ready to go, Pete. I got sandwiches already packed. It's going to be a great time. You'll see. The sun was brutal, even though the haze of clouds. Pete leaned back on the folding chair next to his dad in an old pier. A cooler sat between them and an old tackle box was spread open at his dad's feet. Pete's arm was sore, so he didn't do much casting of the line. Instead, he took in the scene, a handful of small boats in the lake with a few people, mostly old people, fishing in them. Every few minutes, the water rippled in a stiff breeze and brought with it a scent of decaying fish and plants. Pete couldn't remember his dad catching any fish at the local lake. He wondered if anyone caught anything here ever. It seemed weird fishing alone with his dad. It had probably been a couple years since it's been to the lake, and Chuck was usually tugging along, filling the silence with a bunch of questions for Dad. Chuck always had to know things, why someone worked or how it worked or where things were made. Pete wasn't sure if Chuck really wanted these answers or the attention, but either way, he was used to it. Chuck liked to ask questions and Pete didn't care to talk much. So, Pete, I want to know how you're doing, Dad said. Pete lifted his hat, scratched his head, and slipped his cap back on. I'm fine, Dad. Your mother says you stopped playing football and haven't been getting along much with your brother. His dad was using an accusing tone, but Pete couldn't feel his disapproval. Just like he had with his messy room. His dad always acted like it was Pete's fault when things went the wrong way. Outside events, like, say, parental actions, didn't come into the equation. It must be cool to be an adult and right all the time, Pete thought. Pete shrugged, even though his dad wasn't looking at him. I'm done with football. It's not for me anymore. The breeze blew and someone's fishing line flew past Pete's face. He flinched and looked at the guy floating on his boat a couple yards away, paying no attention to where he was casting line. His dad said, all right, that's your choice but about football, but Chuck's big brother. There's no choice in that. Pete didn't exactly need to be reminded, but his dad went on. And as the big brother, you still have some responsibility. I was the big brother to your Aunt Lucy. Still am, and she needs me. She's got a husband now, so she doesn't depend on me much anymore. At the topic of husband, she seemed to be a little uncomfortable. Pete ground his teeth together. Too bad he forgot his gum. Lectures were always boring and a waste of airspace. But at least gum would have been a distraction. He stared out across the lake, hoping something might break up this uncomfortable moment. But anyway, sometimes responsibility can be a lot for a kid, his dad said, clearing his throat. You know, with school, grades, and girls making you feel funny? His dad gave him a side glance. Any questions about girls? Pete's cheeks burned and he shook his head emptily in a negative. Okay, well, my point is if you need to talk to someone, I'm here for you, son. His dad turned him fully then, staring like he was waiting for Pete to say something big. Pete frowned. Okay. His dad ran a hand down his beard. Or if it's easier to talk to a stranger, I can find you a counselor. What? No, I don't need a counselor. Well, with your wrist. His eyes went to Pete's bandage. What about it? It was an accident? His dad's gaze became more intense. Was it really, Pete? Pete jerked back. Do you think I did this to myself? I've heard of divorce can affect families in different ways. I didn't hurt myself, Dad. Jeez. Pete scrubbed a hand down his face in frustration. A fishing line zipped past his face again. He jerked to the left to avoid it. Only the old guys could watch what they were doing. There's no judgment, son. If you did, I just want you to remember that I'm always here for you and your brother. Pete laughed suddenly and harshly. You keep saying that. I've barely seen you since the divorce. You're not here for me or Chuck. You and Mom expect me to take your place with him. Pete thought he could feel better after getting the truth out, but he just felt bad. There was a funny feeling in his chest, like someone putting a hand there where it was pushing hard. That shoulder slumped. That's not true, Pete. I live across town, and you know I work odd hours. I'm doing the best I can. You and Chuck need to know that. I mean, I'll try harder. I love you both. Yeah, Pete heard that a lot from both his parents, but words weren't enough anymore. If Pete wanted to, he could have really just cried right now, but crying hurt even worse than being mad, so he decided to honor the mad. This, Pete lifted his bandage from Dad's face, was a freak accident. There's no witness. There's a witness, okay? Unless I use my mind to make a buzzsaw fly at me and try to take my hand off, right? Not freaking possible. Just take me home, Dad. I'm done. Please calm down, Pete. Please, just take me home. Pete stood so quickly that his folding chair skidded back. A gust of wind flew against him while he was taking his hat. He grabbed it before he could float away. Then he heard a very faint sound before coming sharp toward his cheek, just below his eye. Something tugged at the face over. Ah! Pete! He dropped his pole as his hands flew in his face to find a fishing hook stuck into his skin. The hook was attached to a fishing line, trying to pull his skin off. He leaned for a ward, screaming. Shock and pain flooded through him. His heart was pounding so fast he think he might explode out of his chest. The line was so tight. Pete stepped forward and try to ease the pressure. There's only dark water below him, and he couldn't stop himself. I'm going to head first into the lake, he thought. His dad felt his arm wrap around him and keep him from falling. Hold still. His dad whipped out a small cutting knife and cut the line. The pressure instantly released. Pete hunched over a severe pain. Blood dripped into the water. His dad held him. It's okay, buddy. I got you. He pulled away from the edge of the pier. I'm sorry, someone called out. Is he okay? The freaking wind blew my cast toward you guys. I can't believe it. Pete, look at me. Come on. Let's see the damage. His dad leaned him back. Pete could barely see the hook sticking from his face. His eyes watered, snot ran from his nose, and tears mixed with the blood dripping down his cheek. Dad blew out his breath. Oh yeah, it got you pretty good, but you'll be just fine. We're lucky you didn't take out your eye. So I guess Pete had a bad day. Pete and Dad came home, and Mom rushed to Pete. His face was all bandaged up. Chuck's eyes widened. Wow. He almost looked like a Frankenstein, but he'd have to have that nickname for another day. Wow, how did this happen? Mom practically shrieked. Oh, Pete, your poor face. Hey there, Chuck, my boy. Hi, Dad, said Chuck and gave a little wave. Remember when he was little and used to climb his dad's ladder to pick him up? Chuck wondered when he stopped doing that. Dad threw his hands in the air. Now, Audrey, let's stay calm. It was a freak accident. A hook caught him in the cheek. Wasn't too bad, as I would patch him up myself. Eyes wide. Another freak accident on the same day? How's that even possible? Dad ran a hand down his beard. Not sure. I think it needs to stay in bed. Get some rest, and sure these accidents will pass. Yes, resting was what you were supposed to be doing, Mom snapped. It was your bright idea to take him to the lake so he can get hooked like a fish. Why weren't you looking out for him? Dad whipped off the canvas hat, revealing his bald head. Audrey, that's not fair. He was sitting right next to me. It was a windy day. A freak thing. Pete collapsed on the couch. He looked dazed as he watched Mom and Dad go back and forth, talking about him. Chuck wasn't used to seeing his brother look so vulnerable. He was bigger than him, mouthy and always annoying. Now sitting on the couch, he seemed small and almost frail. Chuck went and sat next to Pete and staring at his brother. You look like Frankenstein bad. Pete, does it hurt? What do you think? He muttered. Chuck nodded as he understood. Pretty bad day, huh? So, what do you think is going on with you? Did you walk under the ladder, break a mirror, cross a black cat? Pete frowned. What are you talking about? He asked. What did you earn a streak of bad luck? Pete shook his head. It's not bad luck. I'm just accident prone, he insisted. I don't know what it is. Chuck licked his dry lips and leaned closer to his brother. There's something weird though, right? First you were sick and Mom filled me in about the weird accident with the construction site, and now this fishing thing. Chuck said thinking about weird stuff that pile up in his brother's life. It all been makings of a really good puzzle. And it all started when you tried to scare me at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, he pointed out. Pete tried to scowl, but he winced at the gesture and hurt his face. What? How you trying to say something like karma? Bull. No way. I don't believe in that stuff. Chuck shrugged. Deny, it's weird. He was silent for a moment, and he said quietly, it wasn't just those things. Chuck raised an eyebrow and shrieked, what do you mean? Pete shook his head. I can't talk about it now. I'll tell you later. He nodded towards his parents, and he wanted to hear. Chuck went to his room and sat on the floor in front of his TV and started playing video games. He didn't really think Pete would tell him anything anymore. But a couple of hours later, Pete walked into his room and sat on his bed. His cheek was puffing below his eyes were bloodshot. Chuck paused his game and just looked at him. Waiting. In school yesterday, I slipped and fell in biology class. I kicked a kid and his scalpel went flying. When I hit the ground, the scalpel was going for my eye. Chuck's mouth dropped over. No way. I knocked it out of the way before it could hit me. Chuck was impressed. Quick thinking. Pete looked for a second. Yeah, when you got the skills. What else? Pete shrugged. I went to pick up the chops at the butcher for Mom, and there wasn't anybody behind the counter, so I walked in to try to find someone. Out of nowhere, a cleaver falls on the hook and slams into the butcher's block by my hand. Holy cow, that's close. Yeah, the crazy close. I mean, if I believed in weird stuff, I think something was up. But I don't think anything like curses. Pete frowned. Get real, Chuck. Chuck sighed. Why did he have to be such a stubborn brother? What else can explain this? 4 times? It's got to be something. Come on, Pete. Whatever it was, I'm done with it. Pete cleared his throat. Just in case it's because of, dragging you to see Foxy, he struck his hand toward Chuck. Chuck's eyes widened and looked at it. Pete lifted his eyebrows. Well, shake. Might as well, Chuck thought hesitantly. He took his brother's hand and shook it. Pete took his hand and even apologized. I'm sorry about trying to scare you. It was dumb. Let's call it truce between us, okay? Chuck smiled. Okay, truce. Thanks, Pete. Huh. Alright. So that's about it for the day. That's the 20 pages. So that's nice. But yeah. Is there something you can take away from this one today? Yes, there is. It's a very simple one. If you're crossed with a decision, think before you do. And this decision was going on a live construction site or crossing the street. You see, maybe, and I'm just saying maybe, don't pick the construction site and just cross the street like a normal person. Don't jaywalk, but cross the street like a normal person. And don't go through a construction site. That's about what I would say. And fishing accidents happen. Can't deny that. But if it's about the second time that you have to dodge a hook, I would move. Like, I would just get out of the way at that point. Like, I think that's a little bit Chuck's fault. He had to dodge it twice just for it to hook him the third time. Like, nah, I definitely think that's his fault. Anyways, hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. And, yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye!